Why shouldn't a woman completely give herself to a man? In this video, we'll talk about the value of a woman and why she should. Remember to take care of herself, not forget about her feelings, desires, emotions, and preferences. Why is this so important, and how does it affect the relationship between a man and a woman? We'll discuss this in my video. So, what happens if a woman puts a man on a pedestal in her life? If all of her opinions, desires, and preferences will take a backseat, overshadowed by his wishes. If the man is the center of the universe and she's just an add-on, what's going to happen in that kind of relationship? And first, the loss of personal identity. A woman starts to lose herself. She forgets who she is without the relationship. So she knows exactly who she is in a relationship. She knows that she is a wonderful housewife, for example. She knows how to cook delicious borscht. For example, she makes great pancakes. She irons shirts well. She knows her husband's work schedule. She knows what time he comes home, what time he leaves. She knows what time he needs to cook, for example, lunch. She lives for his interests. But what happens at that moment? At that moment, the woman has completely forgotten about herself. She knows everything about her man, but now she knows nothing about herself. And for the man, she has become too predictable. A woman who is predictable to a man becomes boring, and all her efforts, all her contributions go unappreciated. Often, this contribution is devalued because she doesn't value herself. A man often reflects a woman's own attitude towards herself. And here she is, trying so hard. A woman who lives for a man's interests forgets about herself and becomes uninteresting to him. Her biggest fear starts to come true. And the first reason is not to give up on yourself. Next, emotional dependency, the kind of attachment that destroys. A woman who focuses only on the man becomes emotionally dependent on him. She is emotionally dependent on his moods, on his experiences. She is unhappy without him. She doesn't know how to live without him. And around the center of the universe that she revolves around, she is heavily dependent on him, on his mood, on his desires. His attitude towards her changes a lot. He stops valuing her, and he sees how much she dissolves into him. So what needs to be done here? Here you need to learn to find inner balance. Enjoy life without being tied to relationships. If a woman knows how to create her own inner happiness, if she knows how to be whole, knows how to live happily without relying on a man next to her, that is, she creates her own personal happiness. A man values and loves and respects such a woman because she is a partner. At the moment when there is a distortion, an excess, any distortion in a relationship, it is always not about a healthy relationship. It is always not about happiness. Where one dissolves into the other, it is not a relationship. It is a game of +1. That is, one person exists for the other, and the one for whom this person exists will never appreciate it, and the one who tries to dissolve in this relationship will never be happy. Therefore, do not create distortions. Learn to live, observing your interests, to understand what I want, what makes me happy, what energizes me, what inspires me, something just for myself. Under no circumstances should you stop taking care of your man. But at the same time, you definitely shouldn't go overboard and create those imbalances. But everything needs to be in balance. If you give some attention to your man, don't forget to give the same attention to yourself. But while I move on to the next point, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next helpful video about the relationship between men and women. So moving on. So why can't you completely give yourself to a man? And that's the disruption of balance in a relationship, from love to routine. If a woman gives herself completely, meaning she lives only for the man and for him, she feels like she has to. In other words, what goes without saying, what won't just disappear, what stops having any value because that value is invisible. She feels familiar to him because she invests more in the relationship. She puts in the effort. She might deserve love. She's trying to be good, helpful, and she's trying to do more for him. He's used to seeing her contributions and realizes that he doesn't need to do anything for her. She handles everything just fine on her own. People love those they take care of. When you take on too much and don't allow a man to do anything for you, your value goes to 0 in his eyes because he doesn't do anything for you. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't show up as a man next to you, and a woman like that becomes less interesting to him. And naturally, she loses her value to him as a partner. So he might appreciate her as a good mother, as a good homemaker, but not as a woman. As a woman, she has no value to him. So mistresses come into play in relationships. By the way, have you ever experienced that in a relationship where you completely dissolved into a man, gave yourself fully, and he didn't appreciate you? Write in the comments. I'd love to read them. Next, why is that not okay? Completely giving yourself to a man. Potential neglect of one's own begins to occur. Needs. That is, when there is an imbalance in the relationship and all the focus is on the man, naturally, there is nothing left for oneself. Nothing. Well, or maybe just a little bit, a tiny bit. You end up having to settle for the little bit that's left. So where does happiness come from? Within a woman. How can it be born in him if she doesn't even love herself? She doesn't take care of herself. She doesn't make herself happy. Where? How can she generate that happiness? And what happens? She's in chronic stress. She's burning out. The man saw a caring wife, a good homemaker, a good mother, and now she walks around angry, dissatisfied, and empty, and he doesn't understand what's happening to her. After all, she was fine with everything was good, but now she's always unhappy about something. It actually pushes you even further away. She becomes irritable, and she might fall into depression. And the man still doesn't understand what's going on. After all, he hasn't done anything he didn't do before. So everything happens just like it did before. And a woman who constantly ignored her needs, her desires, her preferences, becomes empty. This is where that irritability and depression come from. Well, she didn't love herself. She didn't fill herself up. She didn't bring herself joy. Naturally, the man didn't do the same for her. But why? If she didn't need any of this, that's what the man thought. And at that moment, a woman might feel disappointment. So at some point, she became disappointed in the man. But she created all of this herself. At first, she gave up on herself. She gave up on her desires, her preferences, her interests, her hobbies. Later on, she became disappointed in the man, even though she never talked about her needs or what she wanted. And alienation happens, meaning she starts to feel overwhelmed. The relationship begins to fall apart. A man often doesn't understand why this is happening. And a man can actually feel a sense of value for such a woman, like a hostess who has taken on a huge load of responsibility. So she's responsible for a lot. He sees that she does a lot, but as a partner, she's not interesting to him because she's like A. The book that was read, she doesn't have her personal hobbies, she doesn't have her personal achievements, she doesn't have any aspirations and desires just for her. For example, she forgot about herself, and the man starts to forget about her too. As a woman, the next step that follows from all this is the loss of male interest. That is, the woman distanced herself because she does not feel herself in this relationship happy. But the man has also lost interest in such a woman. She doesn't captivate him. She doesn't energize him. She doesn't inspire him. And it seems like this is a common conversation among women who are left without men. Women from whom a man has left for a mistress, for example, or where the relationship just fell apart. She says, I did everything for him. I did everything for the kids. I put everything into the family. I was a good wife, a good homemaker, and so on. So she was playing some roles, but she wasn't being herself. She didn't do anything for herself. She forgot about herself, and her man just forgot about her. A man reflects a woman's attitude towards herself. If a woman forgets about herself, if she doesn't love herself, if she doesn't do anything for herself, what do you think a man will do for her? If a woman loves herself, if she finds herself interesting, if she doesn't forget about herself, if she takes care of herself, naturally, a man will do the same for her. He'll just want to do it. But again, I want to talk about balance. If a woman is too focused only on herself, that's also an imbalance, but in the opposite direction. That's all I have for this video. I hope for your likes and subscriptions. Leave a comment about what you'd like to discuss in my new videos. Don't forget to hit the bell. Bye all.